And I've asked now about 200 people this question because I'm working on my own Trump book, trying to interview everybody. From where you're sitting, now that you finished the book, what do you see? How do you explain this to yourself and to others?
A colleague of mine put it really well. What Trump is he's that black light. You know what I mean? If you think your room looks really clean, then you hold up a black light and you can see all of the little grime and all of the unclean part. That's what Trump is. He's America's worst self. And I think part of the reason that we're getting the chance to experience the worst of what our culture is, just a complete focus only on what's superficial. His treatment of women is nothing more than object, his greed, his narcissism, all of that, part of every culture. But I think having Barack Obama in for 8 years as president prompted a good third of the country to say, nah, if that guy is going to get to not just be president, but get reelected, if we have to live with the changes that mean the next president is supposed to be a woman, and then I guess after that, we're going to expect the next president to be LGBT, and then after that, a Latino president, that's a trend. There was a part of the country that just put their foot down and they said, give us that guy. Give us the guy who's going to say not just no to that, but who's going to say such a hardcore hell no that he's going to try to drag the country back to them, meaning anybody who's not white, Christian, male, they're going to the back of the bus. And they wanted somebody who would drag the country backward. And I think that's why we got him.
I shared this anecdote with Eddie Glaude and Kamau Bell. You probably will appreciate it. I was at the barbershop right before the 2016 election. And I was one of the first folks, I was an NPR interview, and I said Trump is going to win, and people said I was crazy. And it's funny when you're right, you never get emails saying you were right, I'm sorry. Barbershop. And there was an older brother at the barbershop, had to be in his 70s, had to be in his 80s. He's there all the time. Wonderful man. And everybody's excited about Hillary. They measure in the curtains before even in the White House. And this older brother said, are you guys stupid? Do you think you're going to have Obama twice and not have Donald Trump? So on one hand, it seems utterly predictable, but that doesn't mean it's not an abomination. But he was right. And people looked at him like he was crazy.
I tell a story in the book about me being the person who was saying it's never going to happen. You know, I'm sitting this was the last time actually that I was on Bill Maher's show. And I'm sitting on one side of me are Bill Maher and Michael Moore. And on the other side, Tony Schwartz, the guy who really wrote The Art of the Deal. And Michael says Trump is going to win. And he explains why. He says, you just saw Brexit in Britain, which is caused by a lot of the same things, anger about immigration, white Britons feeling they want their Britain back the way in their mind it ought to be, just British people, and in their mind, white British people, and that Trump is just the American version of it. He said where he felt he would do well, the same kind of states where he won, states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, states like that. And Bill said, yep, he agreed. And I said, nah, the data. I was like the Clintons. I'm like, let me show you the data. I'm a nerd. Data shows that the states you just mentioned hadn't gone Republican since the 1980s. Democrats have 80% of the minority vote, and the formula for Barack Obama's win was 24% of the American electorate was non-white in 2008. He got 80%. Then every 4 years, the country gets 2% more non-white. So 28% of the electorate was non-white in 2012. He got 80% of that. So now the electorate is going to be more than 30% non-white. That's the way it's been going. And so now you're going to have Hillary Clinton. All she needs to do is grab 80%. What I didn't anticipate was that the stuff that I'd actually seen, this is one of those things where you got to listen to what you see and what you hear and not the numbers. Because we saw a lot of signs that should have made it clear he was going to win. White male union members in Pennsylvania who we interviewed for the show, they liked Bill Clinton. They hated NAFTA. They hated Hillary. And it didn't make any sense because Bill Clinton is the person you should hate if you hate NAFTA. They didn't have a problem with him. They had a problem with her. And they seemed to feel like she wasn't coming to their community. There's something about her they didn't like. They didn't want to say it necessarily. There was just something about her. And there was a certain kind of anger to them just as men. Part of what they said their anger was because the steel plants in their communities had closed. But the guys who we were talking to were mostly shop stewards. They were at the upper end. They weren't themselves unemployed. One of them who was going to be unemployed, but he'd gotten like a job training program. So they were probably better off than a lot of the steel workers who were losing their jobs. But there was just something about her isn't like it. And so there was a sense when you went around the country and I would speak with younger women, especially younger white women, where they just were rolling their eyes about having a woman president. They didn't think it was that important. They weren't that concerned about it. They didn't feel that they needed to have that. That wasn't something important to them. All these little signs that you just had a softness. There wasn't the same passion you saw for Barack Obama. And sure enough, she only got 88% of the black vote. Russians were able to, in one way, make black people suppress their own votes, basically. Get people to stay home because, well, she said super predator. So therefore, you know what? Don't vote for her. She's racist. You don't want her. And so all of that worked together, the long-term hatred of her that was just cooking in our country.
So I've been trying to think about the emotional life of this country. What do you think this presidency has done to this country? And what did it reveal in terms of where we are emotionally? Because that's the conversation we need to have. What is this doing to us spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and how did it help to create this circumstance?